Order. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. I refer to an article this morning on the front page of the Australian newspaper regarding a member of the referendum working group, Thomas Mayo. Does the Prime Minister endorse Mr Mayo's comment that the power of the voice to Parliament was its ability to punish elected members of this Parliament that ignored its advice on funding and legislation?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Wong.
Well, the Prime Minister and the government have made its views and its views clear about why the voice matters, as I think was discussed in great detail and at great length on Friday evening and Friday night and the early hours of Saturday morning. The voice is about two things. It's about recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our Constitution, and it's about listening to Aboriginal.
Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next.
And Torres Strait Islander people on matters that affect them. We've been clear about the principles associated with that. It does ensure that the voice will give independent advice to the Parliament and the government. The Minister representing has gone through the principles, which I can read out again, and I think were read out on many occasions in the committee stage and elsewhere in the debate. I would make the point, Senator Hanson, I understand what your position is. I thought it was very...
Today in the Australian Senate, a routine session of question time turned into a sharply contested exchange when Pauline Hanson rose to speak during a debate on immigration policy, delivering remarks that immediately shifted the tone of the chamber and drew visible reactions from both government.
Clear this morning. I disagree with it, but
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Hanson.
I'm bringing back to the point of relevance to my question. Is the fact is, does the Prime Minister endorse Mr Mayor's comment that the power of the voice, its ability to punish elected members of this Parliament that ignored its advice? Direct question.
Thank you, Senator Hanson, and the Minister is being direct to your question.
Yeah, what I was trying to say, Senator Hanson, and I understand the position you have, which is to oppose. I take a different view, as do the senators on this side. But the Prime Minister's position is the position that has been outlined by the government minister responding in the Senate over and over again.
And opposition benches, underscoring just how politically charged the issue of migration has become in Australia's current climate. The discussion was centred on the scale and pace of immigration following the reopening of borders and the government's migration targets, which supporters describe as essential for economic growth and labour market stability, while critics argue that the speed of arrivals has outpaced the country's ability to provide adequate housing, infrastructure and public services. Hanson's intervention focused heavily on what she framed as the real-world consequences of policy decisions made in Canberra, arguing that while economic modelling and workforce projections may justify higher intake numbers on paper, communities across Australia...
We've gone to great detail about how the voice will operate, the fact that it will not have a veto power and will not have a program delivery function. Others can choose to articulate this how they wish. The government will choose to articulate our view about how the voice will work, the independence of the advice, that it is chosen by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It will be representative, it will be empowering, community-led, inclusive, respectful and culturally informed. It will be accountable and transparent. It will work alongside existing structures and it will not have a veto.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
As usual, you have failed to answer the question. Do you endorse or not? No answer out of you. Will the Prime Minister rule out establishing seats in this Parliament reserved exclusively for Indigenous Australians if the voice makes a representation demanding it? Yes or no?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Wong.
In relation to the second, that's not something the government is proposing, and it's not something that the government took to the last election. We took very clearly to the last election a voice to the Parliament. And we are seeking to deliver on that mandate. In relation to your first response, Senator Hanson, I appreciate you don't like my answer, but I am entitled to give I'm entitled, Senator Hanson, to give you the answer that I believe is correct in response to your question.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
So, in other words, you're not ruling out the fact that could be Indigenous seats only in this Parliament. My question is, will the Prime Minister rule out the establishment of an independent, sovereign, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander state in Australia if the Voice makes a representation demanding it? You want the voice to Parliament. If they ask you the question, will you actually consider an independent Aboriginal Indigenous state?
Minister Wong.
That's not something the government is proposing, and I believe that question was asked and answered in the debate that we've had in the chamber overnight on Friday.
Australia are experiencing mounting pressure in the form of rising rents, longer wait times for services, congested transport networks, and intensifying competition in already tight housing markets. As she spoke, her tone was firm and emphatic, positioning her argument not as an abstract economic disagreement but as a defence of everyday Australians who feel that the balance between growth and capacity has tilted too far, too quickly, creating strain in suburbs and regional areas alike. The government's response, delivered with equal determination, emphasised the broader economic context in which migration policy operates, highlighting persistent skill shortages in sectors such as healthcare, construction, technology, and aged care, and arguing that without a steady flow of migrants to fill these gaps, economic expansion could stall, productivity could decline, and essential services could face even greater disruption. This counterargument reflects a long-standing policy framework in Australia that views migration as a central pillar of national prosperity, demographic renewal, and global competitiveness, particularly as the country navigates the challenges of an ageing population and fluctuating global economic conditions. However, Hanson's rebuttal centred on the immediacy of public concern, suggesting that while long-term projections may justify current settings, the lived experience of voters must take precedence in evaluating whether migration levels are sustainable. She questioned whether infrastructure planning and housing development have kept pace with intake numbers, and whether communities were adequately consulted or prepared for rapid population growth in specific localities. The exchange illuminated a deeper philosophical divide within Australian politics regarding the role of migration in shaping the nation's future, with one side viewing it primarily through the lens of economic necessity and opportunity, and the other through the lens of capacity, cohesion, and fairness. Hanson's remarks drew attention to rental affordability, an issue that has become particularly acute in major cities like Sydney and Melbourne, where vacancy rates have tightened and prices have climbed, leading many households to feel squeezed by broader economic forces including inflation and interest rate fluctuations. By tying immigration directly to housing availability, she sought to simplify a complex interplay of market dynamics into a more accessible narrative centred on supply and demand, a framing that resonates strongly in public discourse even as economists caution that housing affordability is influenced by multiple variables, including zoning regulations, construction timelines, investor activity, and monetary policy. Nevertheless, the political potency of linking migration to visible economic stress points cannot be underestimated, especially when voters are seeking clear explanations for rising living costs. Government representatives, in turn, argued that migration contributes not only to labour supply but also to tax revenue, entrepreneurship, innovation, and cultural vitality, asserting that a well-managed migration system supports public finances that fund infrastructure and services in the first place. They maintained that reducing intake dramatically could have unintended consequences, including slowing economic growth, exacerbating labour shortages, and placing additional burdens on industries already struggling to recruit domestically. This policy balancing act, between responsiveness to immediate public concern and adherence to long-term economic planning, was evident throughout the exchange, with each side appealing to different priorities and time horizons. Hanson emphasised urgency and immediate relief, while government figures emphasised stability and strategic planning, creating a contrast that encapsulates the broader national debate. As the discussion unfolded, the atmosphere in the chamber reflected the sensitivity of the topic, with interjections, procedural reminders, and visible reactions underscoring that immigration remains one of the defining issues of contemporary Australian politics. For Hanson's supporters, her willingness to confront the government directly reinforces her long-standing political identity as a critic of high migration levels and a proponent of stricter controls, while for her critics, her framing may appear reductive or insufficiently attentive to the complexities of economic policy. Regardless of perspective, the exchange demonstrates how parliamentary moments can crystallise larger public anxieties and transform policy debates into highly shareable, emotionally charged narratives that extend far beyond the walls of Parliament House. Beyond the immediate clash, the debate raises broader questions about how Australia measures the success of its migration program, whether through GDP growth, labour market resilience, social cohesion indicators, or quality of life metrics, and how policymakers reconcile these often competing benchmarks. The country has historically relied on skilled migration to supplement its workforce and sustain economic expansion. Yet rapid shifts in global mobility patterns, domestic housing constraints, and post-pandemic economic adjustments have intensified scrutiny of intake numbers and planning processes. Hanson's intervention can be seen as part of a larger pattern in which migration policy becomes a focal point for expressing concerns about affordability, infrastructure strain, and community change, even when those challenges have multifaceted origins. Looking ahead, the political implications of such exchanges depend on whether public sentiment coalesces around calls for adjustment or remains divided between competing narratives of opportunity and caution. Election cycles, opinion polling, and policy reviews may all be influenced by how effectively each side communicates its vision and addresses voter concerns. If housing supply accelerates and infrastructure investment visibly expands, the government's argument that migration supports growth may gain traction. If affordability pressures persist or intensify, critics may find greater resonance in calls for recalibration. In this sense, the Senate clash is less an isolated confrontation and more a reflection of an ongoing national conversation about identity, growth, and sustainability. Ultimately, the heated moment during question time underscores the enduring complexity of immigration policy in a modern economy, where demographic needs, economic imperatives, and social capacity must be weighed simultaneously. Pauline Hanson's forceful remarks injected urgency and clarity into the debate from her perspective, while the government's response emphasised continuity and strategic planning, illustrating the spectrum of views within Australia's political landscape. As Parliament continues to deliberate on future targets, visa categories, and complementary housing and infrastructure policies, the core tension revealed in this exchange between growth and capacity, opportunity and strain will likely remain central to political discourse. Whether the outcome is incremental adjustment, broader reform, or sustained continuity, the debate itself reflects a democratic process grappling with difficult trade-offs that will shape Australia's economic trajectory and social fabric for years to come, ensuring that immigration remains not only a policy issue but a defining feature of the nation's political narrative.